the basic topic for today. And this is also going to be somewhat of a closure for the saga of Yosef and his brothers. We have gone through a number of issues, starting with a rethinking of the events, and then going back to the traditional events, but going through the missions that all the brothers had gone, and what was the reason for each. And now we're up to the final part where Yosef reveals his true identity to his brothers, and it happens immediately following the plea, as I called it last week, the soliloquy of Yehuda, who, as again we mentioned last time, was really the new leader of the brothers from Reuven to Yehuda, and we discussed why that change seemed to have come about, the change of leadership, which was not only a change of the leadership in the family, but in the end, it was really the change of leadership in all of the nation. Because, of course, we all know that the Malchut, the reign of the kingships of Israel would come through Yehuda. Starting with David and Shlomo and Chavam and Aviam and going and so on and so forth. Even after the division of Israel from the northern tribes to the southern tribe of Yehuda, though there are different kings in the north, in the south there always were kings only from the Davidic dynasty. And that's from Yehuda, as a blessing that Yaakov gives in Vayechi, in the final parsha of Bereshit. He gives the blessing to Yehuda, Lo Yasur Shevet Yisrael, which does not mean that a tribe will never be missing from Israel, but rather Lo Yasur Shevet, the scepter of leadership, of kingship, of royalty, will never leave Yehuda. Okay. So we are trying to find out, after everything Yosef had gone through, after all of the difficult times, and the rather clear plan that he had to falsely claim that the brothers were actually spies, and why he did that. We touched upon a number of different reasons. He was carrying on with that ploy. He was seemingly going to take Binyamin. After all, that's his youngest brother, whom he hardly knew because he was a good 7 years younger than him, and meaning he was probably 10 years old at most when Yosef had to be, didn't have to be, but was sold, and so he hadn't seen his brother for 22 plus years. So that plan seemed to be a very logical one for Yosef. You guys go home. You were the ones who sold me. You were the ones who abandoned me. You were the ones who, didn't care about me. But Binyamin had nothing to know about it. Binyamin was completely innocent. He wasn't involved in this. And he was my full brother, not a half brother as the others were. So therefore, he said, I'll keep Binyamin here. I claim he'll be my slave or servant from now on. That, of course, was seemingly not his plan. He just, figured once they were gone, he would tell Binyamin who he was on a one-on-one thing, and they would stay together. So he had a very good reason to continue on this plan. It was going very well. It was a pretty rough plan, and I'm not here to, not that I have to, but to defend Yosef for what he had done, because there are many who don't defend him, understandably for that. But certainly it was a plan that was going on well, whether it started with the lie that they were spies, the confrontation with the brothers, or allowing them to go after keeping Shimon back, and to come back only if they brought that younger brother, which is really what he always wanted to do. And then, of course, now he was going to separate them from the younger brother so that he would have him. But he breaks down. He breaks down after hearing the words of Yehuda. So I put in a number of things last time. But I want to do something that Rav Bazak did a beautiful thing of. What he did, and I put it in a chart for you, but he didn't do it in English, and I did. He takes the statements of Yehuda. Yehuda goes through the story. This is what happened, oh Viceroy. Look what you did to us. And he gives a whole beautiful story, which, how can I say this? It wasn't true. The story that Yehuda gives, as we're going to find, doesn't jive with the story that the text seems to tell from the very beginning. He seems to be adding things or ignoring things that actually were in the text. So was it simply a matter of editorial license that he would, like nowadays, for example, when you go and open the television to watch the news, that's not the whole story. It's rarely the real story. They decide the way they want it to play. They color it their own way. Is that what Yehuda was doing? Was there a reason why he was doing it? Or maybe if we begin to see clearly, maybe indeed he is telling the truth, though it wasn't fully known to us. So I'm going to begin. You have that, hopefully, on the back of the first page. That would mean in the third source. I leave here only the English to make it easier for everyone, but I will tell you the Hebrew, and then you can see the English. The first step, that first part of the chart, we have what does, I'll call it what's called the subjective view, that of how Yehuda sees what happened in the past, when they first came to Yosef, and then we'll compare that with what the text says happened. So here you have Yehuda talking to this viceroy, whom, as far as he knows, is not Yosef, is the viceroy, the second only to the Pharaoh. You understand, viceroy is not just if we who are old enough know it was the name of a cigarette, but a viceroy is vice royal. Okay, vice president was vice royal. He was second to the king. And so he said, Adoni sha'al et Adonai lemor, hayesh lachem av o ach. It started like this, Yehuda is saying. You came and you asked me, do you have a father or another brother? And we were true. We were open. Vanoma, we said, El Adoni, yesh lanu av zaken. Indeed, we do have an old father, v'yeled zikunim katan, and a father of his old age, meaning he fathered a son when he was elderly, and va'achiv meit, and his brother died. So therefore, he alone remained the only child of that mother, right? And his father loves him, or as I have here, his father dotes on him. Okay? So that's what he says. This is a story which sounds like basically what happened. But look, his father is dead, so that that last part is very important. What happens really? Really, what happened, as you see on the other side of the chart, the objective view. Let's see if this is correct. Recalling the dreams that he had dreamed about them, Joseph said to them, "You are spies. Okay? You have come to see the land in its nakedness." Is that included in the story of Yehuda here? I don't see it. Okay. But they said to him, "No, my lord, truly, your servants have come to procure food. We are all sons of the same man. We are being honest. Your servants have never been spies." Interesting. All right. And he said to them, "No, you have come to see the land and its nakedness, the ervat." Okay, by the way, I didn't mention this last time. Ervat always means throughout the Tanakh nakedness. Nakedness of the land is simply, if you're spying, you look for the weak parts and what you can take advantage as a spy, as an army, however it is, of the weak parts of the land. Fine. But it's a strange, strange word. Ervat. Why didn't I say, just to see the land or to see the weak part of the land? What's the nakedness of the land? Why would Joseph use the term nakedness of the land? Think. Why would you? Yes, it wasn't his jacket. They removed everything of his clothes. He was sold naked. He had nothing on. When they stripped off his coat, that was it. And that's how. So this use of ervat was almost his own way. With that, they didn't know why he was saying that. Nakedness of the land, ervat, and indeed, perhaps it was exactly a hint. Not that they would pick up on it, but the pain he must have gone through, of all the shame he had before he becomes the viceroy, that they put him through. It wasn't just a matter of slave and everything. As a slave, he was sold naked in a slave what you call it, a sale. That's how it was done. It's a terribly hurtful, shameful thing he had to go through. And perhaps he was just using that term of ervat. You are now coming to see the nakedness, not of me, but now of the land. Could be. Either way. Well, after he tells them again, "No, you're spies who came to see the nakedness of the land," the brothers say, "No. We were 12 brothers, it's sons of a man in the land of Canaan. The youngest, however, is now with our father, and one is no more." That's what happened here. And there's an interesting difference between what really happened and the way Yehuda explains or describes the events different than that. The first difference here is, how did Yosef know about the family? So the Torah presents it as a voluntary explanation given by the brothers. They said, "No, we're not spies, but however, we are brothers, we're a family, and we have a father." And they explained and described their family. But over here, Yehuda says that you asked me, the first line of the subjective view, you asked your servants, "Have you a father or another brother?" He never asked them that. It never says that in the text. In trying to defend themselves and claim that we're not spies, they went through a whole story of, we're really nice guys, we have a big family, and so on and so forth, and so on and so. That's not what Yehuda said. I mean, that's what Yehuda says. You asked us if you had a father and a brother. He never asked them that. they offered that to him. So that's an interesting difference. But by doing so, you understand what's happening. Yehuda is beginning to set up a scenario where, very nicely, he's saying, it's all your fault, Mr. Viceroy. It's your fault. You're the one who asked us if we had a father and a son. It wasn't him. But that's what he does. He places the blame on Yosef. And he also claims that they told him that their father was old or weak or frail, and that one brother had died, and the younger brother was a Ben Zakunim. You don't see that anywhere. You don't see that here. He says the youngest is no longer. He's no more. It doesn't say he died. It's no more. It doesn't say anywhere that he was. It says that he was born. He has a son. Our father has a son who was born to his old age. Nowhere does it say our poor father is very weak. Nebuch, and he loves, doesn't say that. But Yehuda says, yeah, that's what we told you. Never said that to them. So that's number one. All right? Then we go on. See, let me see this member. Where's the Hebrew? All right, very good. That's later on. Okay, good. The next part of it, let's see. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me so I may set my eyes on him. Is that what really happened? Well, let's see. In the objective view, again, that's the second box, and now, of course, at the objective view of what really happened, let's say, did Yosef say, bring him down, I want to put my eyes on him, I want to see what he looks like. He's a good-looking guy, that's what he seems to be saying. But what it says here, when Yosef asks, he said, Yosef said to them, it is just that I have told you, you are spies. By this you shall be put to test. I swear that unless your youngest brother comes here, you shall not depart from this place. So what Yosef is saying, not that I want to see him, having accused of being spies, he now says, you've got to prove that you're not spies. You claim you have a brother, so I have to see him to see if that's really what happened. So therefore, let one of you go and bring their brother, and the rest of you will remain imprisoned, so that your words will be put to the test, whether they're true. And if not, I swear that you are nothing but spies. So that was the first plan of Yosef. It really wasn't. He knew he wasn't going to do this, but he made me feel really bad. You're all staying in prison. One person can go back and bring your young son that you claim you have. That'll prove to me that you're not spies. And if you don't, you can't, then for sure you're spies. Is that mentioned here by Yehuda? He skips that at all. He skips the fact that they were accused of being spies. He skips the fact that it wasn't just that he says, next Sunday I'm really not busy. Why don't you bring your kid brother? I want to see him. That's not what happened. You are spies. You must prove you're not spies. You must bring your brother. That's different than, as Yehuda puts it, that you told us that you wanted to put your eye on him, glance at him. It's not what happened. It wasn't. And then Yosef, being this great guy, on the third day, Yosef said to them, look, I feel guilty here. No one has gone back yet. I told you everybody stays in prison. One brother has to be chosen to go back to Canaan. But I feel a little guilty. So he says, do this and you'll live. I fear God. I'm a God-fearing person. Therefore, if you're being honest, so let one of you other brothers stay here in prison. Not all of you, just one should stay here. He'll be the hostage, dirty word, while the rest of you go and take home rations for your starving households. I realize now if you all have to stay here, the one brother can't bring all the food that's needed for the clan that's back home. You claim you have a clan, and because maybe you are telling the truth. I would feel terrible to have that. So therefore, you can all go. One will stay here as my security, as it were, and the rest of you can go and bring the hump back. Nice guy, this Viceroy fellow. It's okay. He said, then bring me your youngest brother, that your words may be verified and that you may not die. And so they did that. That's a very different story than what is given by Yehuda with one verse. He says, you said, bring your brother down to me so I can see him. That's really not what happened. It was a lot more than that. They had been imprisoned. Interestingly, he doesn't mention that. He keeps one in prison, that's Shimon. Doesn't mention that either. Doesn't mention it. Doesn't go through the whole story as to why Yosef does that. He paints the story of what a mean guy this you are. He said it very nicely, when people said, well, what's the expression that often you say, no, the quote, nothing negative, but you're an idiot. That's I don't mean to be negative, you're a jerk, but I'm not being negative. See, he's putting very nice words, but he's telling you, you're really nasty, Yosef. And you're the guys who did these terrible things to me, and you're doing more terrible things now. Okay? So, there's another this second difference, if I can put it, a second difference, right? That's where Yosef decides to release them from prison is not mentioned. And the Torah presents it as Yosef's nice, more than giving in sort of thing. And a nice way for them to prove their innocence without everybody else really suffering, except for one brother who would be kept in jail, but his family would be getting the food that they would bring down. He doesn't mention that, not at all. He even says, Yosef et Elokim anemi, I am a God-fearing person. Not what Yehuda would say about him, would he? So this is, because Yehuda here changes the story completely. He claims that Yosef only, like I said, I want to take a look at this kid. I want to see what he looks like. It's almost like it's a whimsical desire. Oh, you got another, I'd love to see him. Your 10 isn't enough. But bring them down also. You got to understand also, when you're going down from where they were, to Hebron, down to Mitzrayim, it isn't just a hop, skip, and the bus doesn't go there that often. It's a long walk, and you have to take much, camels and so on and so forth. But that's how he puts it. And Yehuda doesn't mention that, oh, I know you thought we were spies, so he had to bring us down. Doesn't even mention the spy thing. It's just because you're nasty and bad. That's why you've done that. In effect, he's implying that. Doesn't give us the other side of it. No, look, let's face it. Every lawyer will do that. Every defendant will do that in court. You give one part of this thing, which could be something you could say Yehuda's doing. But let's face it, there's truth and there's truth. Come on. Now the next thing. In the very bottom there, I think it's the end of the, no. It says, we said to my Lord, see, the boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave him, the father would die. But you said to your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, do not let me see your faces. Wow. Did he ever say that? Did they ever tell him how weak and frail their father is? And the loss of Binyamin would be a terrible, terrible tragedy that might actually kill him. They never told him that, not according to the text anyway. And yet, This is what Yehuda claimed that had happened. They never said that. And the fact that he then, after hearing that the father is going to die, he said, I don't care, bring the kid down. He never said that. Really painting Yosef as a very terrible person. That's how he gives this thing. Now, we're going to have to ask the question, what do you think? Do you think this viceroy is an idiot? He doesn't remember what happened. He's going to kill him. That's something else to discuss. But these are real differences. Having shown these disparate, these different stories, we are asking the question that I just asked. How did he dare say a lie to Yosef, who himself had gone through the experience? You think he's going to believe what you're saying? Yosef knew full well what was going on, I imagine. So why did he have the guts, the chutzpah? I know why, he's a Jew, but how would he have done such a thing to in front of Yosef himself? Okay, and given the fact that he did, why did he do so? I know he wanted to do good, but was there something beyond the fact that he was trying, even with these, I won't call them lies, tweaks of the truth. And knowing that Yosef probably knows that's true, why would he say these things? And in order for us to really understand why, we're going to go back to the story a little bit to help you get deep, a little more, analyze a little more the story of what happened. Back to when, for example, the brothers, the first time the brothers come home, and Papa says, "Oh, Tatalas, my boys, all 11, 10, or 10 of you, I'm sorry." They said, "Oh, 9. Where's Shimon?" So what did they do there? What did they tell their father what happened? How did they relate this story, not to Yosef now, but the first time they come back, to their father, Yaakov? And then compare that to what the story they retell to their father the second time. The second time they tell the story to their father. When at the same time that they returned with the food, and he asks where's Shimon, they tell him what happened. Then it's time for them. They ran out of food. So they had to go back to Egypt to get more food. The family would starve. What's the only way they can go back? With the brother, with Binyamin, correct. So now they have to convince the father that they have to take Binyamin because the father doesn't want him to. What do they say now? Do they change their story the second time when they tell the father the story different than how they told it the first time? That would be very interesting. And there we have again a second version from the 43rd from Mem Gimel and Mem Bet. Okay, so the first version, I'll do that first, even though it's on the right side of the chart. They tell their father, the Lord of the land. I find, she's not the only one. I find the English more difficult than the Hebrew sometimes. The Lord of the land. Adonai Haaretz, that's what it's called. So it literally means the Lord of the land. It means the viceroy, okay? Spoke harshly to us. He accused us of spying the land. We said to him, we are being honest. We have never been spies. There were 12 of us brothers, sons by the same father, but one is no more, and the youngest is now with our father in the land of Canaan. But the Lord of the land said to us, by this I shall know that you are being honest. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take something for your starving households, and be off. And bring your youngest brother to me, so I will know that you are not spies, that you are being honest, and only then will I restore your brother to you, and you will be free to move about the land. That's the story they give to the father, explaining to him why Shimon is not here. Because the Lord of the land took the one of us and let us come back, but we can't come back unless I bring Binyamin. Now they have to, by the way, when Yaakov hears that, first thing he says, Lo yelech b'ni machem. Oh no, you ain't taking Binyamin. My little, the baby of the never 32. Anyway, he's not going. He is not going. That's what he says. Now, however, he's hungry. You know what it's like. I do it all the time. My wife tells me, we want to have supper. I said, I'm not hungry at all. So she sits down and eats by herself. Then I get up and say, boy, I'm starving. When you're hungry, suddenly you do want to have supper. So when he came back and they had all of the food, Yaakov was understandably very strong. You cannot take Binyamin with you. Now they run out of food. So now they've got to try and see if Yaakov is going to change his mind. And there's the second version. When they had eaten up the rations which they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, okay, go back and procure some more food for us. But Yehuda said to him, the man warned us, do not let me see your faces unless you bring your brother with you. So if you let our brother go with us, we will go down and procure food for you. But if you will not let him go, we will not go down. For that man said to us, do not let me see your faces unless your brother is with you. You get aren't you a little, I was always uncomfortable with this. What you're just saying, Papa, I'm not going, I don't care what you say. Is that what he's going to say? Because he's trying to convince his father that we can't go. There's no purpose for us to go without him. Anyway, and Israel, that's Jacob, said, why did you harm me by telling the man that you had another brother? So they replied, the man kept asking about us and our family, saying, is your father still living to have you another brother? So we answered him accordingly. How are we to know? He would say, bring your brother here. Interesting.
You're a father.
Huh?
You're a father. Would you have not volunteered to go down yourself?
It depends what car they had. I truthfully, then I think about it twice. Just not to be personal. How do I put this? I'll put it nicely. The man was 130 years old at the time. 130. Yeah. Well, you're making him older than he was. Yeah. He's 130 years old.
How do we know that?
You know what it says? The Torah says so. Yeah. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana. Vayehi Yaakov sheva shanim va'arba. He lived he stayed in Egypt for 17 years, and he was now 147. It also says when it comes, it says Yaakov Israel was 130 years when he came before you. So he was 130 years old. He stopped jogging. I mean, it's a thing. So he was frail, and we could say that. When he goes, and he does go, he goes in I would imagine, almost a royal type of thing. He's being carried. I don't even know if they put him on a agala, on a wagon. And maybe they would carry him as they did that with Yosef. Also, people like his grandchildren, whatever, servants would carry him down to make it a little easier for him. But to schlep home the stuff, he can't do that. And therefore, when you look at this difference, it's very, very interesting. The first version of the events seemed to follow quite closely exactly what happened. I could read the verses before this, but I won't do it. It's very, very clear that it's the same thing. Yaakov does not react positively to the idea of taking his young brother, his young son, back to Egypt. he says, Lo yered b'nei yitchem. No, he's not going to go down, right? And Reuven is the one who tries to change his mind. It's shnei banai tamid. If you want to, you can kill my 2 sons if I don't bring them back. Oh, good idea. Great plan, you say. Now you know why Yehuda comes over as a leader, Reuven. At any rate, so that's what happened. It was straightforward. So the famine gets worse, more severe. The supplies run low. Again, Yaakov says then we have to go back and get more stuff, right? And now Yehuda steps up, not Reuven. And Yehuda has a little different story. See, for the first time, we see that Yosef, he tells them that Yosef had warned them that they may not come back unless they have it. Before he said, you'll bring your son back and your younger brother back, and that will prove that you are not lying. But now they tell their father, which is probably closer to the truth, and that is that we can't go back. He warned us, he threatened us that unless we have that son, we can't get any food. That's what he said, okay? We don't read that. We don't read that even in the initial event, the record of the events. And now, and Yehuda repeats that fact, let's say, not once but twice. We can't go. He threatened us if we don't have, then we're really troubled, I think, is when Yaakov then says to them, why'd you do that to me? Lama harayet, why did you make things so terrible to tell them that you had a brother? Now, they didn't ask it the first time. But when he sees he has no option but to send him, they said, well, why'd you tell him in the first place that you had a brother? It was a dumb thing to do, right? And they responded, well, he asked us, do you have another brother? And so on and so forth. We never read that. He never asked the brothers, do you have a little brother? I'd love to see. He's probably very cute. And they never asked them that. They're the ones who said, this is the story of our whole family. I mean, he gave the whole history. Oh, we're really not spies because we're great guys. One of our brothers are dead. We have a little one back who is still young. Who asked her that? They say to their father, we didn't do anything wrong, Daddy. He told us we have to tell him if he has another brother. Never did that. That's not what happened. So this is where Rav Bazak says, this is where really the change of the story happens, that Allah has Yehuda now presented to Yosef later on, because the story had changed, whether in his mind or whatever, at this point when he had to explain to his father what was happening. And he places the onus, the blame on Yosef, rightfully, even though he doesn't mention it, because why does his whole problem start? What did Yosef do? First, to start the whole problem. What did he do? He sees his brothers, and what does he say? Yeah, you're spies. Who asked you to say? If you hadn't started that, Yosef, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. No, he doesn't say that in his conversation to Yosef. Maybe he had to hold back a little bit. Maybe he doesn't remind him about spies or not. But by the second time they came back, and Yosef saw Binyamin, Yosef knew very well that they weren't spies now. Right? Can't forget that. Then he now knows they're not spies. So he digs in another way of getting them by taking Binyamin. So therefore he puts him. Yehuda doesn't mention anything, because at this point at least they're completely innocent from any wrongdoing, and yet you have been claiming we're bad, we're this, and so on and so forth. And we were completely open and truthful to you. In fact, saying that none of this would have happened without your false accusation that we were spies. So why did the brothers change the story the second time? Let's start. Yosef begins immediately, as we said, first reaction he had when he sees his long-lost brothers. As it says, "Vayitnaker alehem." He made as if he's a foreigner to them from the word nochri. He made believe he didn't know them. And he said, you are spies. Okay? Based upon what? Based upon what? Because you can't just come and say, you're spies. You have to say, you're spies because I see that you did blah, 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 blah. Let's face it, they had a couple of people coming there to get food in Mitzrayim. I would imagine thousands of people are coming not only from the Egyptians, but it says, it says that the whole land, the whole area had been hit with this famine. And all the people, even from outside, even outsiders were coming. Which, by the way, was a good reason why the viceroy of Egypt could very well see an outsider coming and accuse them of being spies. He would do that to some guys paying taxes in Egypt. But for people from the outside coming, maybe he's going to be... So different approaches. We're going to say some of Farshim, say different things. The Ramban says in number 5, and what, again, you see the English there, what logical excuse did Yosef had to accuse his brothers of espionage, especially if they entered Egypt as everyone had? And the answer the Ramban gives is he saw how well off they appeared, and he wondered why did they themselves have to come to provisions if obviously they have many servants to do so. They're wealthy people. Why are they doing it themselves? Why are they coming all together? No, that's what the Ramban says. But if that's true, why would they respond by saying, we're a big family and we have this? What does it have to do with a family? Why didn't they say, yes, we were once, we now no longer have servants, or we no longer have the wealth that we had, and that's why we had to come ourselves. If that was the whole reason why Yosef was claiming they were spies, because they were dressed too well to be beggars who need food, why would they say, oh, no, it's not that we're rich, it's because we're a family and this? Well, it doesn't answer their suspicion. And that's why the Rashbam is, if you don't know this, Rashbam, of course, is the grandson of Rashi. And he has a very a different approach to his fantastic parshanut, explanation of, commentary of the Tanakh. He knew his grandfather. I think his grandfather died. He was about in his 20s. And when he was growing up and learning from his grandfather, he would say some of his things. And supposedly, his grandfather said, Rashi said, oh, if I had thought you're right, I should redo. And I would add that or change it. Because he always says, Rashi says, I always want to explain things as pshat, as what the words say. Often he doesn't. But he was very impressed with that. Given the fact, however, that Rashi also gave a commentary on the entire Shas, and he did his Perush on Tanakh 2-3 times, on Shas 3 times over. My God. He had a little bit of things to do. Maybe he didn't have not time to do this one over also. At any rate, the Rashbam says the following. Rashbam says, because they were 10 men, yes, of impressive size. They were big guys. They played basketball, they're 6'4". And they remained in one group. They looked rather strong, powerful, big, and they were all in one group. Made Yosef get a little suspicious here. That was very different from all those coming from other foreign places who were, disheveled and exhausted and rather thin and hungry. They didn't look like hungry people, and they looked so. So that's the Rashbam's approach. And that maybe would explain, you'll understand why we're big and strong. But we're all one family. Take care of we take after our father. Yeah. So therefore we were like this. Could be. And therefore it makes sense that the viceroy would then say, yeah, I have to know more about your family. You claim you're one family, so he wants to know about the brother and so on and so forth. But even according to this approach of the Rashbam, it isn't so simple. It isn't so clear either. It can't say, oh, okay, you're right. The words of the brothers undoubtedly humanize them and what was happening. There's no question about that. But, how would I say, yeah, it breaks down some barriers when they're, prove it. Yes, yeah. And I know you can't because I know that you're spies. That was his approach here. Since I'm convinced that you are spies, therefore, I know you're not going to be able to prove it. Yeah, we see it constantly today, more so now than before. People don't like someone else. They say, I'm so sure that you're rotten, and they tell them stories about that aren't true. You're probably going to do this and this and this and this. They have that accent. Yeah.
Isn't this more like a political ploy, like the Chinese, taking Americans hostage and imprisoning them for years and claiming they're spies? We just had one released today. 3 actually Chinese.
Yeah, 3 of them.
Americans released.
Yeah.
From China.
Yeah.
Who had been accused of crimes which they claimed
happens constantly. What they do with Iran, same thing.
Totally innocent.
Sure. Same thing in Iran. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
So the truth is that, I'm not here to, and I'm not going to defend that what Yosef did was great. There are those who say that it was a terrible thing. And the others will give, this is the reason why.
Huh?
It
makes a great drama.
It's fantastic. Think about how many videos and movies, and it's wonderful. It's a fascinating view of a family, and I think what a phenomenal background for Bereshit. I mean, as Rashi says, and the Gemara says, why don't they start the Torah? Torah means law, teachings. Start with the first mitzvah. That's what it should be. Why do I need this background? I think it gives us so much the reality of difficulty of families, of what happens. Well, how much we learn about these stories, about how about treating families and so on and so forth. It's fantastic. But yeah, like I said, right or wrong, I'm not here to be judgmental. But yeah, this is a very difficult thing to try and defend why he's doing that, but there are those who do, and there has good reasons to. At any rate, just think of one thing. He sees these people who tried to kill him. They sold him as a slave. They did these terrible things for him. They didn't know. And of course, he always had this dream. You're going to bow down to me. And I'm going to rule over you. And what's happening? He sees the dreams coming true. He sees that, I was right and you were wrong. And should he have stopped there? Well, maybe, as some approach said, do they realize what they did to me? Did they realize what they did to Papa? And maybe he says, as one of the Meforshim says, or Ban says, Barbanel, I don't recall exactly right now, that he wanted to see, one says he wanted to see if the dreams were truly going to go true, because his father had not yet come, and to bow down to him, and that was his second dream. Others say, no, he wanted to see if he did tshuva. They did tshuva. Did they learn that you don't treat your brother like that? So that's why he isolates the youngest brother of Rachel, like he was the young brother of Rachel, the son of Rachel. I meant that, the son. So these are the reasons behind. Am I defending it? Just explaining, okay? Anyway, now, I was telling you, much of what I have, Rav Bazak argues here that the brothers actually repeating the exact mistake they made some years earlier. And it's exactly what their father Yaakov had told them when he criticized their behavior. In effect, you made a hasty and therefore an incorrect decision. It was a decision that would make things easier for you. We'll get rid of Yosef. We won't have a problem anymore. We'll throw him into a pit or whatever they planned to do. It was an easy decision for them. But you failed to consider how it impacts your brother, your other brother, your father. You ignored that, didn't you? And
Which, are you
no, I haven't given you when I get to a source, I'll give you the source, okay? We've done it for sources 5 and 6 already. We haven't gone to 7 yet. So, and he even hints to that. Yaakov does hint to the same seed, although he had no proof that he knew. We have no proof that Yaakov knew the whole story and knew that they had taken Yosef. It would seem that he did not know that. He does seem to blame them just a bit as to what happened. He says to them, Otishi kaltem, you have made me bereft of my son. Yosef inenu, Yosef is missing. The Shimon inenu, and Shimon is missing. And now you want to take Binyamin. Allah, you kolana. I'm the one who's suffering it all, not you. I mean, think about this in a very objective look. And Yaakov is right on the spot. He said, I got a little nervous when you're going on missions. I sent you the one mission to watch the sheep. And when you come back, you're missing. I gave you another mission to go to Egypt to get food. You come back and Shimon's missing. And now you're telling me you want to go back to Egypt and take Binyamin. Otishi kaltem. Who's going to suffer? Me. The fact that he brings in the story of Yosef doesn't say that he knew that they did something. He's merely saying, is it a coincidence that every time you go together on a mission, I lose one of my sons? In effect, that's what he's saying. It's a powerful thing. And that's what he's saying. Osishi kaltem. And, whether consciously or unconsciously, he's saying them, you have to be more careful. We have young people. Why aren't you more careful about your children, about your brothers, more sensitive? You sacrificed the welfare of your younger brother, it would seem. He doesn't know it for sure, to save yourselves. And you have known brothers. And the second time, therefore, when they tell the events to Yaakov, they change the story and they say, now, no, it wasn't that we volunteered the information, but that the ruler of Egypt, he asked us about it. That's how they changed it around. So it wasn't that we were wrong, but what could we do? We had no choice. That's what he was saying. And after we told him, then he threatened that they would refuse to see us unless, and he says that, unless you bring Binyamin, otherwise you're not going to get your provisions that you need. And they put it in those terms. By doing so, Yehuda removes some of the blame on themselves. We had no choice. That's what Yehuda was telling Yaakov, and in effect, what he ends up now with Yosef. It wasn't us, it was you. And with Yaakov, they said it wasn't really our fault. It was that guy in Egypt. He made us do it. And that's why, their inability to respond to the accusations of Yaakov that made them change the story. That's why when Yaakov said, why were you so dumb as to tell him all about your brother? And they couldn't answer. Really couldn't answer. And it was part of a turnaround, of two characters. First of all, Yaakov, who now had changed his mind about sending Binyamin, is understandable, given the simple fact that they would starve unless he sends a Binyamin. So that's okay. That's good. Yaakov doesn't have a luxury of refusing to feed his family. But also Yehuda. Yehuda is also changed because now it's Yehuda who is ensuring the safety of Binyamin, and not whom, as we pointed out before, no longer Reuven. Now it's Yehuda that's doing it, right? And with this we're going to have to end, I think, already. There's a third and very possible reason as well. Yaakov does believe the story that his sons just told him. Well, why did that change his mind? Because Yaakov considers, who would be interested in whether these men have a brother? What any person in the world would care about whether these 10 have a brother? Or if their elderly father is still alive, which is what Yosef does ask them. Why? Who would care? There's only one person who would care about that. And Yaakov begins to say, maybe it's Yosef after all. Maybe it's Yosef who's doing this. He begins, I won't say it was a conscious, maybe an unconscious feeling. I get chills. And I think about that. Maybe. Why does he now believe? He said, well, who in the world would care about having I want to see what brothers you have. Was your father still alive? Who's going to ask that? Only one person. Only one person would do that. And it's proven, by the way, to a certain degree, because the final words that he says to the brothers before they return to Egypt, the final words, this is, he says, may God show mercy upon before this the man, meaning the viceroy, and send you and your brother. V'shilach lachem et achichem acher ve'et Binyamin, and he'll send back the other son, your other brother, and Binyamin. Well, what do you think that means? Simply, what are the two brothers he wants him to send back? The other brother is Shimon, who still he has in prison, right? And he'll send back Binyamin too. That would be pshat, as it says. But why doesn't it say Shimon? Why does it say Achichem Acher, that other brother? The other brother. Rashi, and by the way, Chazal too, and the Ramban agrees, and we'll end with the seventh source. Okay? And the seventh source is, why did Yaakov say, so he will send your brother the other, and Binyamin? Because it says in Bereshit Rabbah, brother referred to Yosef. The other referred to Shimon, and also Binyamin. For in his prayer, he also prayed for the return of Yosef. Wow. Very interesting. So we'll end here, and we'll continue finishing up with this, with the second focus of the story, which is the actions. And we'll finish this in Mirza Hashem. And I would imagine we have time, but this rabbi talks so much, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. But maybe we won't end up finishing this. This is the third stuff. The final. Oh my goodness! You know what? I have many more pages here. Yeah, maybe we just we'll finalize this great question of what caused Yosef to go, or better yet, what was going on? What was truly going on?